All right, Q&A time. I have a lot going on today, so I'm going to go through these pretty fast. Not because of game day, I don't really care about that, but I have other stuff that I've got to do around here, so I've got to assemble a bunch of stuff and get some fuel and I got a bunch of things. Anyway, so I'm going to go through these quickly as I can, and I'll try and expound on them where I can, time permitting. Fair enough? Okay, so what's with you and all these self-help gurus? And by the way, I'm actually shortening all these questions. Usually these are questions that I'm kind of like compressing down and getting to what somebody's asking me, usually from a longer statement. Anyway, what's with you and all the self-help gurus? I have a problem with a lot of the self-help gurus because most of them are just after your money. Most of them are just after some kind of feel-goodism. You give them money, they give you enough information that you could probably go be dangerous, and a lot of that information you could get probably on the internet for free. And it becomes sort of a con. And that's the problem I have with a lot of the self-help gurus that are out. And I'm not talking about somebody who is helping you get through maybe some personal problems. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guru, the money gurus, right? The guys come to my Airport Marriott class where I'm going to teach you the secret that nobody else will teach you about how to be rich. You give me a bunch of money and shit like that. I have a problem with the way that a lot of those people are presenting that stuff because most of that is, a lot of it is entertainment. I put Dave Ramsey in the same category. These guys are entertainers. They're just trying to entertain people, and frankly, they're shills. You can watch my old shill video on that. You can also see the False Hope Economy video, which is somewhere on TikTok and on Twitter, and YouTube, actually. What are your thoughts on tipping and gratuities? Okay. Yeah, it's hard to disagree that the tipping has gotten a little out of control in the U.S. in particular. I do tipping, right? If it's something where I think somebody is doing a service for me, I'll throw a tip there. Now, as to whether or not it's going to be a big tip, because I don't have a lot of money, I'm like most everybody else. I don't have big bales of $100 bills littering my house. Okay, so I have to be thrifty about this too. But in general, what I do a lot of times is if it's something that I can do myself, I'll just do it myself. And that way I just avoid the situation altogether. That's a lot of the times what I'll do. I'll just go do things myself. And frankly, I do a lot of my own cooking. I do my own cooking. My wife, frankly, I make better food at home than I can get at any restaurant. I mean, unless I go to a very high-end restaurant, I can make really good food. I've done it professionally. So. What is a post-profit economy? Post-profit economy, I'm guessing this is somebody who heard me say this at some point. Post-profit economy is what we have right now. That's where you keep subsidizing mega corporations. These are not really businesses in the sense that you would think of them as a private company. These are government entities in all but name. They are not really private businesses that are subject to competition the way that we would think of it. And so these private companies, or these companies that are subsidized heavily, well, they don't really have to deal with having to be profitable anymore. And there are a lot of companies that fit that description now, where they're not profitable, and they haven't been profitable for a long time. In fact, some of these companies are downright toxic at this point. But they continue to show a profit on the books because, well, we have to have the stock market look good for world events. We have to make sure that China and all the other countries see us as a growing country, even though we're not. Everything about the U.S. is in straight decline. So a post-profit economy is what we're seeing happen currently, where we have a bunch of subsidized mega corporations that are bringing in a bunch of subsidized illegals to make it look as though on paper, on one set of books, that, oh, look, see, everything works just fine. No, it really doesn't. And you have a bunch of Americans that are going broke watching this and can't figure out why it is that their prices are coming way up, the quality's coming way down, and there's like no jobs. So that's a post-profit economy. What happens when Trump wins? Nothing. I'm guessing same shit, different century. It's going to be the same basic program. Do I think he's going to do mass deportations? I know in that Vegas speech he talked about, we're going to do this big mass deportation thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that that's a fantasy. I think that he's playing to a base, and I would like to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen at all. I don't think you're going to see, I don't think any of us are going to see in our lifetime this big mass deportation effort that where upwards of 30 to 50 million illegals are going to get kicked out and told to get back in line. Hey, you just cut in front of like millions of other people that have been waiting patiently to get into the country legally for many years in some cases, and have spent many tens of thousands of dollars doing so, and you just sort of barged in front of them, and that's really not cool that you do something like that. And then even with legal immigration, I would argue that we probably could slow that train down a little bit, because we have a lot of domestic problems right now with just our own people. We probably should deal with some of those issues first before bringing more people into the party. Why do you give Bitcoiners a hard time? For the same reason I give Christians a hard time. It's not because I disagree with them fundamentally. It isn't. I agree with a lot of Christian philosophy, right? I mean, Christ was a philosopher. Whether he was Son of God or not, that's up for grabs. But he was in fact a philosopher, and he did get a lot of things right. I concede that, absolutely. I do the same thing with Bitcoiners. But when I hear someone say things like, we're going through, like, when I was younger, I went through this mission trip in Mexico. And we were a very poor part of Mexico, very poor part of Mexico. And you see just absolute abject poverty out the window of the van, and somebody says, some Christians this obligatory statement of like, all they need is Jesus. That's the same thing, same problem I have with a lot of Bitcoiners who say all they need is Bitcoin. No, they need clean. In the case of Jesus, no, they need clean water for starters. They need clean food. They need to not have a river of shit rolling in front of their houses. Let's do a few other things first, and then we can talk about philosophy. Bitcoin is the same thing. Bitcoin, in my mind, is a currency that solves a tremendous amount of problems all over the world. I've conceded that on many occasions. But there's a lot of people who still can't count back change. Let's solve that problem first. Then we can talk about, the idea of like how to fix a lot of these really big problems. Foundations. That's my whole thing. It's like, dude, get a solid foundation first, and then the rest of it goes together really fast. What kind of business should I start if I have only $4,000? This is a tough one. I would suggest that you first of all, use that to probably educate yourself as best you can. Meaning, I don't necessarily mean the four walls of a school, and I don't mean going to the fucking gurus at the Airport Marriott or the West End Grand Ballroom downtown. Rather than do that, try to find, I would suggest, personally, maybe suggest a skill, and then develop that skill for a while, and then if you have a little money left over, maybe you can buy some of your tools, because you're probably going to need tools. The idea of sit around and do nothing kind of thing and just make money, that is rapidly going away. The idea of, where, and unless you are extraordinarily talented and you can put together like really funny stuff on the internet and get millions and millions and millions of followers, and you can sell them something, I would argue, of course, also you want to sell them something that maybe you make, and that might actually help as well, because then you're controlling a bit more of your profit, and you're able to maximize a bit better. But if you're selling somebody else's product, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's a perfectly viable business strategy, but keep in mind that's an incredibly crowded market right now. So my suggestion would be to invest in yourself in a skill. Why do you defend all these people doing low-skill jobs, and the jobs are supposed to be, short-term jobs? I think I know what this person's asking. Okay, so why would it? Because somebody has to do those jobs. Right, so you shipped all the good jobs off to China and India, respectively, to prop up communism and prop up, a caste system in India. You wanted to prop up your portfolios while you're about it, right? So because you did that, well, it didn't leave a whole lot of jobs here for people to do, except all of the jobs that you consider to be low end. Although all those jobs are nonetheless necessary, right? I have a problem when I hear some of these questions, the way that they're worded, like, well, but these are low skill. Like, well, hold on a second here. It doesn't make any difference if it's low skill or high skill. The fact is that the job still needs to be done. Someone has to do that. Well, no, automation. Dude, I'll spare you my 30-minute lecture on automation. Automation's fake. It's bullshit. They know that most people are not going to ask about how any of that stuff works long term, or how it's going to be repaired, and who's going to take care of all that stuff. They know most people are not going to ask those questions. So what I would suggest is that, you have your fellow Americans that have jobs here. You should be supportive of that. And, well, but they want more money. Of course they want more money. I'll see you in part 2.